What you gonna play now? I don't know. Get down, get down, get down.
I know you're gonna dig this.
Get down, get down, get down.
Yo, what's up everybody? Welcome back to The Get Down. This is Beats, Season 3, Episode 11. What the fuck is going on out there? How is everyone? I hope you're all well. Hope you're fucking kicking goals. Cruising along. I'm doing well. I'm still sober. Matter of fact, I did a podcast today as a guest with old mate Ron, who has his own podcast called The Truth About Addiction. I'm just going to ask you guys to head over there and give him a follow on Instagram and have a listen to his podcast. He's got some pretty crazy guests on there and he's doing amazing things up here, actually. He's up here, not very far away from me at all, which I found out today. But he's doing some amazing things, helping people change their life and stay on track with their being clean and their sobriety and their mission to goodness, greatness, and happiness. Because you can't really be happy if you are high. Nah. So we want to thank last week's guests as well, Outside Lines, aka Commence, and Kate Dyer. Thank you guys for coming on. Really enjoyed the chat. Real fucking funny. Had a good old laugh. Had just as much fun editing it and even had to listen back to it in the car to sections of it. And it was really fun. So thanks, guys, for coming on. I really appreciate that. Right, so we are going to rip straight into this week's guests. This week on The Get Down, we are still on the hip-hop tip, and I'm joined by another artist that I have never met personally. Well, I have at a gig, shaking his hand and said g'day, but I've never met him personally. However, we did create an online back and forth back in the MySpace days years ago, and we used to chat via email, and I've always been a big fan of his music and been quite envious of his courage when it came to fashion and his physical appearance. He emanated a real I don't give a fuck attitude and was quite refreshing back in the day in a scene that was very narrow-minded at the time. His music is distinctive and, in hindsight, dare I say, influential on many other artists that followed in his footsteps. He seemed to have disappeared for a long time, but now, here he is tonight on The Get Down, formerly known as Brass Knuckles of Celsius. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Brass. Brass, what the fuck's going on, man? Long time no see.
Yo, Beats, mate. So good to be here, man. It's been a few lifetimes, I think.
Yeah, it has, man. I just said in the intro that, I reckon I met you at shows a few times, but we were never mates. But do you remember we used to talk via email, or maybe even MySpace? It was right back when you dropped those sevens, man, and you were heading off overseas.
Yeah, it was. The old MySpace days. That's crazy, bro. It's funny. I kind of reflect on it, and I kind of think, shit. I probably should have been a whole lot more savvy on that whole digital front back then. But I don't know, man. I'm just a product of the old school, So kind of had this MySpace thing, and then I remember Hotmail was a big deal back then. And then when I kind of got back from overseas, I just sort of disappeared, and I didn't touch my Hotmail for like 10 years or something.
Fuck.
And then because I hadn't touched it, they just wiped it, and I've lost every contact from that lifetime.
Wow.
So bizarre.
Yeah, really. I didn't know they did that because I've got an old one. Yeah, so I was just getting compromised hardcore, so I jumped over to Gmail and used my proper name and everything. I was going to job interviews and they're like, "What's this? Get there. What's this all about?" But I'm sure it's fucking full of spam now. But yeah, and then after MySpace, I remember real clearly. Sorry, man, to cut you off, but just while it's on my mind, I remember after MySpace. Well, MySpace was still cranking, and it was Delta. Delta was over one day, and he said, "Man, you need to get onto this Facebook. This is the new thing." And I looked at it, I'm like, man, that's all professional. That's for fucking snobs and people who work, man. Like, fuck that. That's not for musos. And next minute, here we are.
Boom.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
should have.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I kind of thought I'll set the Instagram thing up and start to post up all the old shit because I was a mad hoarder, so I collected all the flyers at the old gigs. I was the guy with the handy cam, so I had heaps of footage, and I thought, I'll start the process of just putting shit up, and it was kind of forcing me to sort of revisit the music and get back into it. And it's amazing how easily you can connect with people, compared to how it was, and how you had to almost be pen pal.
Yeah, man. Well, I remember working with people interstate and sending CDs in the mail. Simple at times, but not really.
Yeah, mate, it was a commitment. It was, and I was kind of thinking about some stuff to talk about because I wonder if my Alzheimer's is going to do me any favors today. To all of that. And I was listening to I think some of your chat with Paul, and then even some stuff that Jake Biz was doing the other day, talking to Tons and Math, and I was like, it was cool. They were talking about that pre-internet and all of that, and that communication thing, but it was really commitment. I remember I'd skate my ass to Paul's house. I'd catch a train and I'd skate about 25 minutes to the studio on a school night, and I was like 15 years old or something. And man, I had to be there, and if I told him I was coming, I had to make sure I was coming. And then I had to get the shit done and get back to that last train to get home to get back to school the next day. And that was commitment back then. There was none of this, I'll text you and I'll flake out and we'll do it next week. You had to be there.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Like, I was having this conversation a few weeks ago with someone not music related, and it was like, we were talking about like integrity, right? So, if I said I'm going to be there, I'll meet you at X location at 6:30 or something. If I'm not there, something's gone wrong. There's no text, there's no phone call. It's like something's wrong. We need to go look for him. Funny shit.
To send out the search party.
Fucking hell, mate. Fucking hell. So what's been going on, mate? Fucking hell. It's where are you? You got a fire. Man, you got a fire cranking. Is that in the background or in the reflection?
No, that's behind me. There's a little fireplace there. I'll probably turn it off a minute. It'll suck all the gas, and then everyone will have a cold shower tomorrow. So, man, I moved out of Sydney about 3 years ago. We sort of packed up and decided to make the move to regional New South Wales. Moved up to just outside of Bellingen on the mid-north coast. So we're sort of living in the forest, I guess. So, yeah, it's really cool. It's not completely off-grid, but, no town water. We drink our water straight from the creek. Wow. Yeah, and sort of in the floods and everything, we're kind of pretty cut off, which is cool. But, yeah, just to give it a go,
Bad internet as well.
Yeah. The problem is I've kicked everyone out and told them to go upstairs. So I think they're all up there trying to
use the internet,
dial in at the same time. So I wonder whether I should can my video or not.
It's up to you, mate. It's up to you.
Mate, if I stop that video for a while, we'll see how it works.
Worries.
Might make things a bit easier.
Yeah, no worries, mate. No worries. All right, so I was just admiring your library in the background there, mate. You got a pretty impressive catalogue there.
There's a little bit there, man. It's probably a bit hard to see. I could probably turn some more lights on. But there's some cool old collector's stuff in there, and like the first Sneaker Freak issue and Atom's unlettered book. That was a pretty cool one back in the day. There's a whole lot of cookbooks in there. some other random shit, Dose One's poetry and things like that. If we want
That'd
to
be
kind of talk
interesting.
about what would be hip hop, and then I just threw that Celsius record up just to figure.
I was just saying to Paul like the other week, I scored the green and yellow copy. I was fucking stoked, man.
You know, just something to.
Oh shit.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah. That was a lucky one, man.
yeah, man. Yeah, how many of them were pressed?
Gee, now you're testing me. I think there was probably about either 20 or 50. It was a pretty limited run, the colour.
Yeah. And how many
Yeah,
how
but
many black?
Yeah. The black, I think we probably did a couple of thousand back then.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was a pretty solid run. I know the first Celsius record we did a second run. We probably did somewhere between 500 and 1,000 copies of that off the top of my head. That was pretty cool. You know, that was back when you actually glued all the covers together yourself. And I mean, I did that with the sevens too. But yeah, fuck, that was wild, mate. You know, like I remember we had the world against us with that first Celsius record. We got that Dash artwork together.
Yeah.
And it was just absolutely mind blowing. But it was before anything was digital. And I think Paul might have touched on this, but we took it to this place in Bondi Beach to get it photographed in this studio. And of course, we set everything up ready to go, and the whole of Bondi just blacked out.
Fuck.
And it was like, fuck, what are the chances, man? You know, but Bondi does not black out. And here we are trying to get that record photographed so we can get the covers done. The whole friggin' suburb just goes black. We're like, So yeah, we were always up against it a bit, trying to get the work done. The forces were trying to probably stop the carnation of Celsius, but mate, it was cool. We got there. Yeah,
it's crazy. I've got written here. Talk about the artwork. Dash, he's done some pretty amazing jobs. So he did that. He did the Checkmate and Mortar and Disaster Grand Lodge 3, and I think he did a draft cover as well.
Yeah, did he do a Downside or something? Maybe.
Yeah,
He's done a few,
he did. He did the one where they're animals. Downside ill something. God, they're gonna kill me. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got that distinct style, and so him and Shime were working together. Shime did all the layout. Dash just went into this mad kind of like he just researched the hell out of the Mayan calendar and the Mayan gods and everything, and so there was all these sketches. I actually reached out to him recently, and he's got a whole bunch of sketches, and I wanted to buy one off him and get it up on the wall at home, sort of, just as a bit of memorabilia, and just an amazing piece of art out on the table at Paul's house. It's just like, bam, like that was just, we hadn't seen anything like that, and it was just, that was all textures.
Crazy.
And it was huge. It was probably about metre and a half, maybe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. I don't know if you can still see, like, if your video's off, but it's crazy, isn't it? It's just crazy.
Yeah, man, I can see your video, and that's just wild. Yeah, it was just so cool. And on the back, there's like all the little snippets that are kind of if you zoom in on the city, you got the guys tagging the train and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, mate, there's just so much detail in that work, So
it's crazy, eh?
Yeah, we were super lucky with that, man. It was pretty dope. And that was kind of like, I think, the first full color sort of vinyl. Everyone was sort of doing that thing where they pressed it in a one color print
and put the sticker on
that's
there.
all any of us could afford back then.
Yeah, with the little sticker.
So we thought, we'll get that thing printed full color because it just wouldn't do it justice to do it any other way.
No.
Let's get it shrink wrapped. Let's put a sticker on it and just sort of lift that, that level up a little bit, Also, too, we were running out of options for a single color. I think we had, Prowler was purple, Level Heads was red, Coolism was orange.
Yeah, true.
Everyone
think of that.
Everyone had their one color print done, and then it was like
there was that. There was this too.
Shit, what do we do next?
The basic equipment was blue.
Yeah, basic equipment was blue.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, well, it starts to get quite expensive
Yeah.
when you start talking full color print. You know, that's next level spending.
Oh, mate. And back then, you know, back when we were making those records, it's not like there was any money on the table. You know, that was all,
Crookneck.
you know, DIY. So I think Paul was working in a print studio at the time, and so he was, you know, he was sorting all that out. He did the die cut himself for the cover, you know, and we were just sort of, mate, just everything was just homemade, you know, and that was how you got it done.
Oh, because the first one wasn't on Crookneck, was it? It's just basic equipment. That's right.
That's right, yeah, man. That was kind of where basic equipment spawned from, and we kind of did that doco, and then off the back of the doco, you know, started working on the Selfish record. And yeah, so it was all sort of, you know, coming straight out of sort of St Mary's, out of Western Sydney there, and there was no label sort of backing. I think that was still probably about 98, 99 when we were working on that, and I think we released that early 2000. But, yeah, it was cool, you know, because we'd sort of organised the tour with AC Alone, and so this was all sort of coming out of the back of, you know, some of those real early tours that we did with AC Alone and Buku One, if you remember him.
Yeah, man.
He was on the record as well.
Yeah. I've got all the Echo CDs that came out.
Mm.
And when they all came out.
I can remember Echo.
Yeah, man. That was a
that was some pretty cool shit.
Yeah, it was, eh? We used to go into shops and just fucking rip the CDs off the shirts. Yoink. See ya. Oh, fuck.
Yep, that's right.
But there was some good joints on there, man. Like Mocha Only as well. I think he was on there. Yeah, there's some good joints.
Yeah.
That'd be somewhere in a box in my
there
basement.
was some.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think I've got a couple of copies as the same thing in a box somewhere. I think at my mum's place. She's got all my CDs. Probably somewhere between Jodeci and you know, Fushnikins or something.
Oh, shit. All right, well, let's get back to where it all began. So, what I normally do with guests is sort of just go through their childhood, and I don't mean like I'm not a psychologist. Like tell me what happened when you're a child, but what was it like for young Brass sort of growing up, and then what it leads into is how did you get into hip hop? You know, so like how old were you? Who introduced you to it, and what were you cranking? So, what? Because you're a lot younger than Paul.
Yeah, mate. I'm probably maybe not 10 years, but I think about 8 years younger. So yeah, probably pretty much a whole generation. You know, I'm sort of same age as the sort of Bliss and Esso boys and all of that. But I guess I kind of came in to the hip hop circuit with the older crew, so I kind of started to probably tour with the older crew a little bit quicker than some of the guys around my age, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I'll put my video on, dude. If it keeps buzzing out, just tell me and I'll turn it off.
Yeah.
But yeah, early on, man, like I don't know, like my dad was a DJ, so that was probably, you know, my real introduction to music and digging and collecting.
What sort of DJ?
You know, so from a young age, oh man, mainly weddings. You know, he'd do weddings and parties and you know, all that sort of shit. And then he was a bit of a salesman. He had a different job every week, so he was just always on the grind. But mate, I spent my entire childhood just in secondhand record stores, sitting under shelves while my dad just dug through crates. And for a long time, I absolutely hated it. But you know, now you know, that nostalgia of those record stores, the smell and just the concept of being in there just takes me right back, you know.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my introduction at a young age. But man, growing up, I listened to Motley Crue. You know, like it's funny, I got young girls now, but I mean, you know, I was listening to Motley Crue and Faith No More when I was like 8 or 9 years old. You know, and I never forget when the Guns N' Roses record came out, and
Appetite.
You know, I said, "Mum, I want the T-shirt." You know, Appetite for Destruction, and I said, "Mum, I want that T-shirt." So she went down and she got me the T-shirt for Christmas or something, you know. she got it home and didn't realise, but on the back it had that rape scene artwork.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it did.
And,
eh?
you know, with the monster with all the blades coming over the fence,
Yeah,
the blades hanging out, and this poor girl laying on the street.
that's right.
And so she saw that and she took it straight back, and I never got to wear that T-shirt. So I think I ended up with like Alice Cooper thrash or something like that, you know. But so mate, yeah, look, I grew up listening to metal, you know, that sort of music, and mate, today I still listen to it. Still love Skid Row, still love Motley Crue, Faith No More. Probably my favourite band's Mars Volta. You know, so that was kind of where I was at a young age. I had long hair. You know, I was always probably a little bit out there with my dress code, but, you know, I watched a lot of horror movies. So I was a bit of a sort of cult fiend, and I guess that's probably where the hip-hop synergy sort of made sense long-term. But probably like early 90s, man, I hit high school, you know, probably around 90, 91, and that's where I started to sort of, you know, be exposed to the more hip-hop sort of music. And never forget, my dad was working at this store in Fairfield, you know, and he used to just bring me random shit. And one day he turns up with a Hype magazine.
Yeah, right.
And I was, because I you know, I was a mad artist. I loved drawing as a kid, and here's this graffiti magazine, you know, and I was just like, holy shit, you know, I think I was probably all of 11 years old or something, you know, and man, I'd, you know, never been exposed to it, didn't know anyone that was like remotely into anything like this, you know. So here's my dad giving me a graffiti magazine for the first time, 11 years old, and that's kind of where it all kind of spawned from, you know. I started to collect those. He, you know, there was this shop, MJ's Music, in Fairfield, I think it was, in Western Sydney, and they were a little bit alternative, and they used to just stock the cool shit.
Yeah.
So he'd go in there, he'd ask them to, you know, source other graffiti mags. I'd get stuff from Germany, and that's kind of where it all began. And then, you know, he took me to a record fair one day, and you know, said, you know, time to buy your first record. And first thing I picked up was People's Instinctive Travels, Tribe Called Quest.
Man.
And that was it. Game over. Mate, that was the introduction, and mate, I play that record weekly, religiously to this day.
Yeah. I see it's in your signature on your email.
It's funny.
There's a tribe quote in your email.
Yeah, that's, you know, that's been a long time. I kind of, you know, kept that running throughout my business career and stuff. But yeah, so that was kind of where hip hop really hit for me, you know. And then things like Run DMC came in, and, you know, that was another kind of big influence at the time, because Run DMC were doing stuff with Aerosmith.
Yeah.
So I had this kind of way of assimilating from the rock music into the hip hop. I don't know if you ever seen a film called Judgment Night, but
yeah, man, that's
one of the most phenomenal soundtracks.
That Dinosaur
Yeah.
Jr. and De La Soul and shit, fucking so good, so good.
Yeah, man, and so, you know, that was just that natural thing, you know. But then here's the R&B movement. You know, he's becoming a teenager, getting into high school. So, you know, I sort of did a real kind of shift and found a way to express myself through poetry and art and hip hop, you know, and that's where then I met Sinus. And so Sinus and I went to school together, and, you know, we grew up from probably the age of 13. So, you know, every school talent quest, we were up there, we were rapping. I think we started doing like alcoholic songs and stuff like that. And, you know, and then we got into writing our own stuff eventually, but, you know, we're deeply influenced by a lot of that sort of stuff, you know, Tribe Called Quest, Alcoholics, and then of course the Wu-Tang era, you know. And I think our first band was called Children of the Corn. And, you know, we were just this duo, man. We were in Western Sydney. We didn't know anyone.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't exposed to the Australian circuit. And funnily enough, man, it all comes around, and all of a sudden, you know, we meet Torture. And turns out his mum was my English teacher.
Wow.
You know, and his Torture, he's similar age. We'd run into him out in Parramatta in Western Sydney, and, you know, there used to be these kind of freestyle events and things. And so he was there. This was sort of before the Hijack days, you know, and then sort of meet Trey and a few other people out there. at these gigs and, well, not really gigs, sort of like, youth open mic
Yeah.
sort of things. And, mate, that's kind of where it all kicked, Far out. That was like, I don't know, maybe 90, 92, 93. But at this stage still, hadn't been exposed to the local scene. So here I am reading Hype magazine, sort of getting my own overalls and Sharpies out and doing like a unique piece down the leg, full rip. And, I never forget opening, I don't know what edition it was, but there's the unique 3rd degree burn piece on the centerfold. And I mean, Paul was just my idol.
Yeah.
I'd never met this guy and actually didn't even realize he lived in Western Sydney, but I was just so inspired by his art. And, I used to follow him through these magazines and then put 2 and 2 together that was Death Wish Cast. And there was this event called Casula Powerhouse. Hip Opera at the Casula Powerhouse. I think it was 92 or 93. I tried to Google it. Nothing came up. But it was this wild-ass, full-blown hip-hop show. I think I was in year 8 or year 9, man. I was just a kid. And so here's Sinus and I. We catch a train out to Liverpool, probably about, a 30-minute ride from where we were to a completely different part of Western Sydney. We go to this Casula Powerhouse. There's these giant silos. Dudes are just painting. It was just everyone you could think of. Mystery was there. Like, I don't want to miss anyone out, but, just all these old school sort of hip-hop crews. And here we were, man. We were just exposed to it for the first time. And going into this gig, and it was just like a movie, it was almost like someone had the smoke machine up, but I don't think they did. I think it was just people smoking weed, and there's Death Wish Cast in the background, and holy fuck, that's unique, and here we are, these little scrawny kids, and, we just seen them in this dodgy sort of cut and paste magazine, which turns out to now just be an iconic part of, our culture here. And, and then get to watch Death Wish Cast play, and just, mate, that just put things from 2 to 100, straight away for me. And I was just like, fuck, this is it, this is where we need to be. And I never forget, man, we missed the train, we ended up sleeping on the train station, got home the next day, got killed by our parents. But man, would I switch that to miss that? No way. That was a real pivotal moment for us as young kids, and seeing that, there was a scene locally that we could tap into. So, that was really a real pivotal moment there. It was a pretty significant event for Western Sydney. And then there was like a few sort of jams out at Blacktown. We'd turn up with open mic sort of sessions. There'd be a few DJs playing, and Sinus and I just go out there and just jump on the mic, and eventually Paul turns up. He's painting this bus. And I was like, fuck, now I got to go talk to this guy, So go over, introduce ourselves. And he's like, man, you give us a call when you kind of get your shit together, when you practiced a bit. Here's my number. Let me know when you're ready, type of deal, So anyway, we went away, and mate, we just kept going. I just kept rapping, just kept practicing, kept writing. Man, gave him a call, I don't know, 4-6 months later or something, and said, oh, Paul, I don't know if you remember me. I didn't think you were going to remember me. I'm just some kid. Here's this guy, fully, amazing artist, putting out records, touring the country, Death Wish Cast. Anyway, he was like, Todd, man, great, been waiting for you to call, man. Let's go, come around. And so he invited us over to his studio. At the time, there was a few other crews like Just Us. They were kind of also out there sort of shopping for young guys, so they'd be looking for people to join their crew, which was really interesting. So we were kind of exposed to that. But at the same time, Paul was just this rock, he was just this solid, knowledgeable guy. He was just super friendly, super open. And man, he just sort of took us in and started showing us the studio, how things work, giving us some tips on what we're doing, trying to get us to not be so Wu-Tang Clan.
Yeah. Were you rapping in an Australian accent?
Sort of
at this stage?
To start with, no. Definitely not at the start. At that stage, I think, we were kind of getting there. It's funny, I listen to my old stuff and it just sounds really forced. You know, I've always struggled with Aussie hip hop. Yeah, like listening to it, it's you know, it's quite harsh.
Yeah.
And there's a time and a place for that real Aussie accent. That I don't know, man. Like, you know, those early days doing shows, if you rapped with an American accent, you just got dragged off stage and bashed.
Yeah.
You know, like it was just how it was. So you learn quick not to be one of those dudes, you know.
Isn't it strange? That whole? I remember when I came up, there was one bloke amongst our ranks, and he rapped in an American accent, and we're just like, nah. Well, he had stopped before I met him, but he was doing it earlier, and there was such a stigma around it. Like, you know, Weapon X and Ken Hell, like it was a big no, man.
Yeah.
I know even people used to fucking have a go at Bliss, and I'm like, he's American.
Yeah, and it was funny with Bliss because he had quite a strong accent, but then because he lived here for so long, there was just those few words that he said quite Australian, you know, and so we kind of struggled a bit because he'd say something and people were like, oh, like you do have an Australian accent, you know, but he didn't, you know, like he actually, most of his language had quite a twang to it.
Yeah.
That was cool. Like, you know, I did some stuff with those boys back in the early days, and you know, I really loved their poetry. You know, they were really visual in the way they wrote lyrics, and you know, it wasn't all just about beers and smoking bongs, you know, and that.
Yeah, their early shit was fucking slamming, man. Their first demo, that Bliss and Esotericism, fucking hell, that was so dope.
Yep.
That was mind blowing.
Yeah, and you know, and I think, you know, they just used that American sort of culture to their strength, and so their shows they would always bring in some big hit tunes and sort of rap over, you know, popular tracks, you know, and it generated a completely different audience to what we or any other groups were doing, you know, and you know, I don't know, everyone's got their place, you know, and I always struggled a bit with the whole hip hop scene because I mean, you know, hip hop's my culture, man. I'm an old man and still my culture, and it always will be. But like for a culture that draws on so many influences and a culture that's supposed to be so free, and it's so confined.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and we become so confined within it with our rules and our guides around who needs to be what. You know, if you don't wear your jeans aren't baggy enough, or you know, your American accent. You know, I get the issue with the American accent, and people want us to be recognised as our own country and our own thing. But at the end of the day, man, shit, is it really worth killing someone?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, look, in New Zealand, they really embrace the American accent, and there's very few acts that did come out with the New Zealand accent. I remember one of them was on the Stealth magazines, you know, and he's like, "There's a dead dog on the side of the road and a hedgehog froze and stuff." I'll never forget that. It was fucking funny song, man. Funny as.
You do it well. But yeah, but this is the thing, you know, like I think when you listen to Aussie hip hop and you want, you know, like now it's a little bit different because you know, there's avenues for it, you know, like it's an accepted genre of music. There's you know, there's radio, there's mainstream playing it. Shit, man, there's dudes on TV on adverts, you know, and there's a place, but man, 20 years ago,
pioneers,
like, hard-ass Aussie rap was not going anywhere. It was never going to be on anything. It was that rough and raw. Even the dudes that weren't talking bad, just their accent was so harsh. It wasn't accessible, you know. And but you know, it's amazing how it stuck true. And you know, in the end, it's up there. You look at English hip hop, you know, and it's a similar sort of thing, you know. It's got that old kind of hijack influence, you know, and
London Posse, whatnot. I speak to overseas artists still, like through the podcast and when I meet them here, and like one, for example, like over the years I've spoke to Sage Francis quite a bit, and I said to him, like, what do you think of it? He goes, I just can't understand it. He goes, I just literally can't understand Australian rap. He's like, I just can't. I hear it, I don't understand it. Like, it's too thick. And I think
Yeah.
about maybe like the Trems and real ochre and lazy greys, like really thick. But there's some that's quite palatable, you know.
Yeah, and I guess too, it just probably depends how much slang you've got running through it too, because I guess, you know, there's a whole lot of Aussie slang that no one's going to understand what the hell you're talking about, you know. And I think that's probably part of the battle, but I don't know, I think generally the Aussie accent's a lot more common these days, you know, you're seeing it in a lot more films. Australia as a whole is you know, people understand what Australia is now. Man, you know, funny story, you know, we toured AC Alone here, you know, and that was 97, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a long time ago. And so Paul had reached out. We had Buku. We were connecting with him. And originally it was supposed to be Tame One from the Artifact.
Yeah, that's right.
And we were going to tour Tame One out here and do this national tour. Anyway, Tame One freaked out like a couple of weeks before the flight and had a panic and, you know, didn't come. So all of a sudden AC Alone got on the bill. Anyway, we turn up to the airport to pick up AC Alone. And these dudes stepped off the plane. AC Alone's a well-educated human being, all right? He gets off the plane. The first thing he says, whoa, you've got cities.
Yeah.
And it's like, they were shocked that we had electricity, mate.
Oh, really?
All right?
Where's the kangaroo?
And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, you're an underground rapper. How the hell would we know about you if we didn't have electricity? You know, if we were that primitive, there's no way we were listening to underground West Coast hip hop. You know, and that was a weird thing for me, but that was sort of back when no one toured. And, you know, these guys didn't talk and they didn't know what to expect. So Tame One had a panic, didn't turn up. Yeah, he's this hard rapper from you know, New York, wherever he's from, and mate, he's scared to come to Australia. Yeah, and then AC Alone gets here, and man, he was homesick. You know, and
That's funny, hey. That's so funny.
because and they toured again and again, and now it's like, you know, AC Alone, Abstract Rude, it's like second home. You know, Abstract Rude and the Resin Dogs had, you know, they're like this,
Yeah.
and it's just like them going interstate now. You know, it's normal, and there's been that many acts that have come out since. But back then, man, it was crazy. We had AC Alone sleeping on the couch at Paul's studio in back end Western Sydney. You know, and
That is pretty crazy.
He was just like, man, yeah. He's like, where am I? You know?
I remember when Anticon came here, and because you're an Anticon fan, aren't you? You're familiar with those boys?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
You said you had Dose's book. Soul said to Tarnsey, like Adrock from RCF, he goes, man, this is dinosaur country, because they live up in the hills of Adelaide. And I'll never forget, they'll tell me, like, he goes, this is dinosaur country. They were blown away by, like, the density of the trees and shit like that. Oh, shit. And you go out and do
man, you know.
You do the touristy things like take them to see a kangaroo and hold a koala, and they're like, whoa, man.
Yeah, it's amazing, you know. Like it's pretty wild. I don't know how many people we got a place called Featherdale Wildlife Farm in Western Sydney, and it's like a really small sort of native Australian animal enclosure, and you can get in up and close, you know. And I don't know how many rappers we've taken through there, man. It's funny, but yeah, that, you know, the Anticon tour was sick, you know. Like, I was a big fan, and you know, really saw a connection with what they were doing, you know, with all the poetry and just the experimental way they addressed hip hop. And man, I was listening to their cassette tapes when I was in high school. You know, I think there was one dude, Maxwell, he backpacked out here at some point, come to cassette tape at Next Level Records in Sydney, and you know, Amato at the time was like, here, Todd, this is something for you, you know, because we were just these kids, man. We'd get on the train every other day, skateboard in hand, and, you know, an hour into the city after school, and just do the circuit and skate to all the record stores. You know, go up to Good Groove, down to Central Station, Next Level Records, to hang out. And that was us as young teenagers trying to get exposed to the scene. And we got this cassette tape, and it was just all these like really old home recordings of like Soul and Dose, and I think Sage might have been on there. I don't know, Buck 65, and so it was just these tapes of their demos,
Crazy.
and then that would have been in the sort of late 90s, probably 95 or something like that, 94, and then 2000 comes and Anticon come out here. Man, you couldn't get their records anywhere. I used to fly to Melbourne. There was this random little shop. It was the only place you could buy the Cloud Dead records.
Oh, yeah, that was so dope.
10 inches when they first came out.
Yeah.
And so I used to fly to Melbourne just to buy a frigging record, because you couldn't get it in Sydney. Anyway, so I got all these records, and then Anticon come, and here I am, having a fan moment, and I turn up to the bloody, like we toured, we went to Newcastle to the Electronic Summit, I think it was, some sort of sound summit. I don't know. Were you up there, Beat?
Yeah. No, I wasn't. I'm just looking for a record.
Yeah, that was such a cool time, and I think Tons was there, and everyone was there. It was wild. So we did the support act.
Yeah, I knew about it because I was going to go because they'd just been to Adelaide before.
Yep.
Yeah, I was a massive Anticon fan. I fucking went right down that rabbit hole, man. That was crazy. Seeing seeing Dose, like,
I'm just gonna stop the camera again because we're glitching.
Yeah. I was just trying to find a record then, but it could be anywhere. They brought out that picture disc, where it's just pretty much fucking like real lo-fi beats, and the other side is it's just an interview, like a 20-minute interview that they pressed onto vinyl, man. And I was all over it. I bought everything that they brought out. Like, they came Dose, Soul, and Gel. And
Yep.
I bought everything they had, man. I just cleaned up, and fucking Gel was on fire, man. Like, he was way ahead of his time, eh? And I just love that they would experimental, and they weren't in that lane, man. They weren't gangster. It was, far from it. Far from it. And
yeah,
Dose, what Dose was doing with his voice at the time was like, fuck me, man. Like, yeah, I can see you being a fan.
Oh man, he's just yeah, look, I was kind of, almost too much of a fan. I kind of, almost became a bit of a copycat. I had to be really careful because I was so inspired, and so at the time I was really trying to find an avenue to branch out from, such strict hip hop. Celsius was such a strict, straight up hip hop band, and
yeah.
And I think, I love Paul because he allowed me to be me, and I'm just kind of digging through my records as we talk, man. There's just this one. I don't know. I've got to find it. Anyway, you probably know what it is. But, yeah, so, when I got exposed to the Anticon stuff, I was just like, man, here we are. This is truly me, and so, yeah, it was like that first record. And
oh, yeah.
so I was lucky enough to get everyone, like,
for the
mark
hip
that
hop
up.
for the
That's
advanced
all Soul
listeners.
and Gel.
Fuck. Yeah, I had that. I don't know where
That's
it
all.
is, man. Shit.
A Gel dodgy pen marks there.
Even how they sign
man,
it is bizarre. Shit, that'd be worth a bit, man.
Just like a book of poetry that Dose One did, right?
Yeah.
And it's got a disc in the back, and so he recites sort of all the poetry. He's got it recorded. But man, the craziest part about Celsius. So we toured with AC Alone. There's a cassette tape somewhere with a track with Celsius and AC Alone. It was never released. All right, floating around. I think we did it in 1998 or something like that. So it's got AC Alone, Buku One, Ambush, and Celsius, produced by DJ Singh. And then when Anticon came in, we went up to Next Level Records in Sydney. We put some beats on. 13th Son, myself, Sarek, Soul, and Gel rapping.
Fuck off.
All right.
Where's that?
That's sitting on an ADAM tape from an Akai ADAM machine floating around. God knows where it is. I think JP Lance might have it. But I took it overseas. I was trying to find somewhere to get the shit taken off it. Dude, never released.
Fuck. In the ether, mate.
sitting there, you know.
Out in the ether.
and that was the problem with Celsius, you know. Like we would just do this shit, and it didn't really matter, you know. Like it wasn't. We just did it because we loved to do it. It wasn't all about getting it to the finish line, you know. And you know, we put that first record out, and then it took a couple of years to get the next one out. And there was all this stuff in between, and all this exposure on tour, and you know, there was a whole lot of stuff we could have probably packaged better and put out to the world. But man,
that was his takeaway. Sorry, mate. That was his takeaway.
There you go.
When I asked him, you know, the last question, which is a bit of it, which we'll get to yours, but he said he wished he had have handled the business side of it better and like kept everything in place, you know, had all the files, and I said to him the same thing happened with us with the Adroit stuff. It's like we were going to repress it onto vinyl, and we didn't have the masters, we didn't have the artwork, we didn't have anything. You know, it's all over the place. You know, one person's got this, one person's got that. We couldn't even pull it together. We were going to have to get it mastered from the CD, and then the person who was going to do it, they're like, you know, that's not ideal, but it can be done. But yeah, I kind of wish that too, that we kept everything sort of a bit more tight.
Yeah, and look, man, you know, I think, you know, the hard part with Paul, you know, like, man, he's the most talented dude I know. You know, like his ear for sound, his pursuit of perfection and quality. You know, he can make the most amazing electro music you've ever heard. He can make the most slamming hip hop beats you've ever heard. But man, he can sit down, he can mix a rock song or you know, an R&B song with his eyes shut. You know, his talent. He should be sitting in a major studio somewhere earning lots and lots of money. You know, but man, his heart's on his sleeve, and he doesn't suffer fools. A lot of people just want to take him for a ride. A lot of people want to you know, get in there and get something off him for free. You know, and you know, for him it was never about making money. But at the end of the day, you know, like, you don't wish it on anyone more than for him to just be successful and have a patch that's his and you know, allow him the space to be as creative as he is, you know. But mate, it was just never going to come. It was a different era, you know, and timing's a bitch for some people, you know. And I think that was really hard for Paul, you know, because mate, he was always about the art. He was always about the culture, about the craft, you know, and you know, no handouts, mate, you know. And mate was ready to give anyone that came and wanted to be a part of it, ready to give them everything he had. And that's what he did for me. You know, he gave me everything, mate. You know, and that's why for us, like it's more like a brotherhood. It's family, you know, like make records, but it's about spending time together. You know, really more than anything.
The way I liken it with him, I don't know if I said it on the episode with him or not, but I kind of feel like I know some footy players who were top rank in the SANFL, and they were just too old to hit the AFL when it came in. So you got all these young players going in, finally getting that big money. But then you got these champions who, if they did make it, they were in there for 1 or 2 years. That's how I see it. I feel like, you know, Paul should be playing AFL. Paul should be up there with the Hoods, with the Bliss and SO, making that cheddar, you know. And it's I don't feel sorry for him, but I just feel like he should be there. You know, I feel like there should be all of those
parties. Like, it's a tough game. Like, man, the Hoods, you know, like, fuck. You know, they work hard, you know, like they're doing the same thing day in, day out. It's a hustle, you know. Mate, you got to have the stamina.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think, you know, I definitely no chance. You know, I couldn't do the same thing for that long and stick to it. You know, like I can't keep a job that long. You know, and I think Paul's the same. He's going to kind of keep branching out in different ways, and that affects your ability to succeed because, you know, you're off on a tangent, you know, chasing something new and different. Yeah. And I think that's a real challenge, you know, because you look at the Hoods, man, they're hard working boys. I ran into, I hadn't seen them in years, and ran into him in Sydney probably a couple of years back now. There was like some, Don't Kill Live Music protest or something, and I was hanging out with Paul, so we went down, and there's the Hoods. They were touring with Eminem at the time, and hadn't seen him in 20 years.
Yeah.
Mate, walked straight up like it was yesterday, and they didn't have to talk to me, they didn't have to remember me, but mate, they'd only just had kids, they're a little bit older than me, and
true.
And I'm thinking, shit, they gave up a lot for a long time to get where they are,
Yeah.
and now they're just trying to get to that point where they can have a little bit of a balanced life, but been a hard road.
Yeah, pardon the pun. It's a full-time job for them, man. Fuck yeah. They're touring at the moment, and it's fucking, it looks glamorous, but it would be fucking hectic, I mean, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is glamorous.
He's like, I think Supper was like, here we are, we're on tour now, and we've got like a masseuse because, we're pulling a hamstring, out on stage, running around because we're old men now, and we're going to go backstage and get our pulled muscles sorted out, Such a completely different concept, but it was good, it was really good to just be able to have that 5-minute chat and really get a glimpse into where they are now, which is so cool. Cause, as I said, I've been, removed from it for so long. So, mate, literally feels like another lifetime.
Yeah, well, it almost has been, man. Like, fuck me. That's a long time ago. I remember when that music was coming out. I had a newborn, and she's got a fucking kid of her own, man. So it is a long time ago. Well, I just want to ask you, what was that like for you to have Sir Rank, man? Like, come on, let's face it. Even the other week when I spoke to him, I admitted I was a little bit nervous to speak to him. What was that like as a young fella, having him take you under your wing, knowing full well what he'd done, who he is, and how talented he is? The fact that he took a chance on you, and what was that like?
Yeah, well, man, it was a tough act to follow. That was the thing. Here I was, I was just a kid. Didn't grow up on hip hop music. I'd only probably been exposed and into the hip hop sort of scene for a couple of years prior to connecting with Paul. And he taught me a few things, but he was like, "Hey, we're playing some gigs." I was playing clubs, and I wasn't old enough to be in those clubs at that time. And here I am, I turn up, man, and like Paul's there, and you got IBS and all the crazy ass riders, and man, like, there was no girls in the audience. It was rough. It was rough crowds, and man, I didn't quite fit in. But yeah, look, man, he was always just a solid dude. He supported who I was as a human, and he made it feel like it didn't matter. So I could turn up to a show dressed the way I dressed, trying the raps the way I'd rap, doing things a little bit different, and mate, I don't know, it was a synergy with Paul. Like, we didn't have to try to be anything. Like, we'd rehearse because we wanted to be tight, but man, a lot of our show was made up on the spot. Like a lot of what we did, was just a natural progression, and it just gelled. It just worked. We had so much fun, and I think that was the whole point. That we weren't up there, trying to be a band. We were just up there free. It was just pure outlet, and like it was therapy. I was thinking about what I'm going to tell you here, and when we get talking about the second Celsius record, that was just pure therapy. And
yeah, he said that.
Like, I look back now, I look now as a 43-year-old man, and I got 3 daughters, and a job and a mortgage and all that stuff, and I had a business for 10 years before that, and man, I've never been as balanced as I was doing that music, because that outlet, that therapy, kept me straight, kept me sane. And I don't know, I was a bit different as a young bloke, man. I didn't drink when I was young. I studied martial arts. So when I came in and I met Paul, there wasn't we didn't get pissed. You know, we didn't sit around drinking beers and get wasted. We were doing music. It was pure.
Yeah.
And Paul, didn't really get pissed or anything either. So we would just write music. We would sit in the studio. We would just record stuff. We would try new things. And I think for him, it was this generation shift. Here's this younger guy coming in, got the metal influence, doesn't mind doing some random weird shit, having a laugh. We're all into conspiracies.
Yeah.
And we could create this music that just, it wasn't defined by anything, which was cool. Paul had accepted me, and that was enough for me to say, I've got my place, But then when we started to do the shows, people did actually enjoy the music. People did respect who we were, and that just made it easier. There wasn't a whole lot of pushback. There was a few dudes in the scene that couldn't cope with the fact that I wore different stuff. My hair was a funny colour, but man, whatever.
I know. Yeah, it's almost like you had the Godfather's approval. I was explaining to someone today that you were coming on, and I showed him the Stealth cover, and I said, this is him here. I said, and I was talking about what you specifically, and we'll get onto this in a minute. I was talking about what you specifically wore to the Culture of Kings launch in Melbourne, and she goes the same thing. I thought. She goes, well, it's just a bit like Andre 3000, isn't it? I said, exactly. I said, but so going on to that, and I did say it in the intro that I was always in awe of your what's the word I used? Courage. Envious of your courage, I said. So you push the boundaries with your fashion and your physical appearance. So one time I remember where it seeped into where I witnessed homophobia directed at you, and I witnessed violence directed at you, which was the Culture of Kings one, where someone threw a bottle at you while you were rapping. And kudos, you just fucking kept rapping. I fucking love that. But you're wearing like a shirt, one sleeve missing and one full length sleeve, and you had the infamous apron, right? So I remember saying it was ahead of his time, and I was like, you just come fresh off having the Stealth cover, I don't know if it was that early actually, if you had the Stealth cover, but your music was out there, so I'm like, this dude's just out there, they were for me, I was quite accepted. So what? That was just you were just pushing those boundaries. Was it on purpose trying to push boundaries, or what was the deal with because you were making your own clothes, yeah?
Yeah. So I guess it stems back from, again, probably my childhood. So my dad was a DJ, but my parents were split when I was a kid, and so I was raised by my mum. So me and my bro were raised by a single woman. She worked 3 jobs, man. She worked hard.
Yeah.
She gave us everything, and she allowed us to be and do whatever we wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, man, I'd go to school with a mohawk and 15 earrings and, whatever I wanted to do, bangles everywhere. And, there's photos of me as a kid wearing all her clothes and, all her jewelry. And, I mean, most boys dressed up in their mum's shit. That's just what it was. And I guess, I was thinking about this too, because I'm like, I've got to try and prompt myself to remember some of this shit. Because, I mean, for me, it was just normal. It was who I was. But so I didn't really think about it much. But I guess, man, I grew up on Motley Crue, Poison, Skid Row.
Yeah.
These were all full-grown men that wore makeup and tight leather pants and teased their long hair.
Iron Maiden.
Like that was normal, and these were like heavy metal dudes.
Yeah.
And so then, the other part was my day job, man. I was working in like fashion houses, so I was working in warehouses for big fashion companies, and I just had clothes and pattern making and all of that at my fingertips. So I'd go and I'd cut my own clothes and pick my own fabrics, get the patterns together, send them off, get them made with all the fashion that was being made. They'd turn up and I'd have like a whole light pink pants and shirt, ready to go, or the apron. And God did the bloody apron. You know, man, I reckon I could sell those
I
things
liked
and make
it.
a
I
fortune.
liked it.
You know, it had dragons on it, had little clips for the chain for my wallet.
Yeah.
But the whole point was that's just who I was. It was expression. It was all an extension of my expression. And hip hop was, man, if I could sing, I've always said it, if I could sing and play guitar, I probably would never rap again. It's probably bullshit, to be honest, because I love the technicality of rapping. But man, like it was an extension of the show. For us, the Celsius show was about theatre. It was about getting something different, about the big bang factor. You know, like when we went out on stage, it was all or nothing. It was a full live experience. And I guess the hard part was then I was like, all right, well, I got to step this up every time, because that's how we approached the music and the show.
Yeah.
So then the clothes probably got even worse and worse for a while, right? I mean, I remember there was one awesome gig. I think it was at the Metro. You know, man, Metro sold out was just one of the best things to play. But an ex-girlfriend had got me this poncho from Mexico. And I found this crazy shirt, which looked like it was see-through. And it had like all these, almost like tattoos all over it. And so then I braided all my hair down with feathers in it and shit, and made these cowboy pants. Come out on stage. I think I just turned up to the show and Paul hadn't even seen me yet, you know? And I just remember, because he was just straight baseball cap and shorts and T-shirt every time. And he'd just look around and be like, oh, fuck, here we go again, you know? but part of it revved him up too, you know? Yeah. And so, man, it just worked. You know, we were like yin and yang, really. And the hardest part was at that sort of 2000 phase with that first Celsius record. We actually got sponsored by Carhartt.
Right.
So here I am, man. I'm this young kid, man. I used to go into Central Station Records and look at all these clothes. Like, man, you know, I wear hoodies like everyone else, man. I'm not sitting here in a friggin' apron. But, you know, I used to look at all these clothes, and then all of a sudden we're sponsored by Carhartt. But then I'm challenged because the Carhartt T-shirts are big and baggy, and the Carhartt shorts are big and baggy. Yeah. But I'm making all this other shit that's just not going to work with it, you know. So I had to find a way to still wear the Carhartt clothes, because that was part of the agreement. But then, you know, dabble and get my own style across. But funnily enough, man, the one thing that saved my life that night when Culture of Kings, when that bottle hit me, I think it was like a plastic schooner glass or something, but it hit me right on the corner, right above my eye.
Yeah.
And so like it
opened you up,
it cracked me, but it just opened me up. I never forget. I kind of just flinched, but I didn't miss a word, I'm pretty sure.
No,
but then,
you kept rapping, man. Hang on, you're cutting out. I want to hear this.
Like the Terminator. All I could see was red microphone. Oh, shit.
Yeah. No,
all
go
right,
again.
Camera off. Yeah, so I was there rapping, and I could just, it was like it was the Terminator. I could see like red sort of through one eye, and then I could just see the blood flying off the front of the microphone into the crowd, and I was like, what the fuck? And I never forget, I just turned around and looked at Paul, and he was just standing there in shock. He didn't know what was going on, man. He thought someone had come up and clocked me or something. And anyway, that night we met Brad Strutt and everyone else. This was sort of like, you know, early days still.
Yeah.
I never forget Brad, man. He was like, he walked up to us at the start of the night and he's like, I'm Brad Strutt and you're going to know me by the end of the night. And we looked at each other and went, all right, cool. So anyway, here we are on stage, thrown, head gets split open. He's straight off the stage, straight in the audience. He's just belting this bloke. And, you know, we're just trying to finish the show. I think it was like song number 2, man. We were the closing act. I think we had an hour set.
Who was doing
so
this?
I had this scarf.
Paul was bashing someone.
No, this is Brad Strutt. No, Paul was standing there in shock. Man. He didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
he freaked out. He was like, "Oh my god, this has turned into like, you know, Chainsaw Massacre." But no, Brad Strutt and a few of the other boys, the Melbourne boys, all jumped off stage. We were at the Corner Hotel.
Yeah, I was there.
Another one of my favourite venues. And man, yeah, they just jumped in the crowd and gave this guy a hiding.
Yeah.
And so I had this scarf. So I just tied the scarf around my head.
Yeah,
and thought,
that's
yep,
right.
let's keep going, you know. And
yeah.
And it was cool. I remember sitting out the front afterwards and, you know, sort of just floating around, and a lot of dudes came up and were like, "Oh man, respect and blah blah blah." I thought it was cool. It's sort of like a pivotal moment where it changed people's views. You talk about homophobia. There was, I guess, a lot of that. A lot of people kind of called me gay or whatever. But I don't know, man. My mum was a chef. I grew up with gay dudes. I get it. Like whatever. I'd go to my mum's work and sit in the kitchen all day and be picked on by gay dudes. I was like, I didn't look at gay dudes as soft,
Yeah.
These are dudes. They were in the kitchen. They were wild. They pushed me around and as a kid, and then here I am at these shows at these bikies, and they're like calling me gay, and I'm thinking, you're just scared, bro.
Yeah.
Like scared of difference, and that's where I come back to going. That hip hop boundary, that hip hop constraint. That it just shouldn't exist. So
well, it doesn't
anyway, here we are today.
Yeah, little Nas X is out
people
there.
wear whatever they want. The other thing I used to think of was, didn't you all watch like the original hip hop shit? And weren't they all wearing like leather get ups and like they look like they were from the Blue Oyster Bar in like Police Academy?
World class Wrecking Crew and fucking Africa Bambaataa.
So I'm like, well, what's the difference? But anyway, man. So now I think I've got that on video somewhere where that bottle hit me in the head.
Yeah, that'd be good. That'd be good, man. To see that.
Man, I got about 100 tapes because I filmed everything.
Yeah. And
I've just got to figure out a way to get all this shit digitized so we can get it out there for the world to see. Man, the first Culture of Kings show, got that all tour, got the whole Anticon tour, got Company Flow when they were here, Latyrix, Alcoholics, Supernatural, fuck, everyone, man, Mystic Journeyman.
Oh, wow.
Heaps of shit.
Sick. Yeah, man, there was some
and
good
all
gigs.
the local acts that came with that.
There was some fucking good gigs, wasn't there?
There was a lot, man. I kind of look back and think, geez, like how did I do all that? I kept a day job, and we toured with Celsius, and then eventually, I'd kind of toured with Upshot at the same time. So I was touring 2 albums and still keeping a day job, and somehow playing basketball at the same time. But yeah, it was we were just busy as kids, like that was cool. I look at my teenage girls now, and I'm like, you got to get busy, you got to be busier.
Yeah. Well, they're like, we are, Dad. We're on Instagram. Oh, shit.
Do you need beats for your new project? Tired of waiting on files to transfer after you pay for a beat? Then BeatBay is the place for you. Come surf through the selection of beats provided by various producers catering to every urban music genre. Find what you need, add it to your cart, check out, pay, and download your exclusive beat mixdown and stem files. That is BeatBay. Hit the bay today.
What's your favourite memory from back then when it was all popping off, man? Like when, all right, so let's go back to this. Let's say you've just come off the Stealth cover, all right? And you by that, that's my favourite cover of Stealth, by the way. I really love that. I just think the yellow image, like with Paul there, and your hair being orange and the blue sky, I think it's just a perfect fucking photo. But what's your favourite memory of that back then? And what's it like coming off that being? So by then you've got Kicking It to Hell and Back out.
No, not yet. That was still. I think the Stealth cover was still only 2000 when we did the first record.
Shit.
And then I had some like crazy ass laminated jeans in that photo, just to sort of top off the fashion stuff. So they're actually laminated. They're like plastic. I used to sweat my ass off on stage. But man, so back then, those early days, that I got some pretty cool memories from then. So one of the classic ones was when we went to Adelaide for a tour, and man, we turned up down there. We stayed in the Austral Hotel. The place is haunted. We're having a good laugh.
Who put you up
and
there?
And then we're...
Chef
we probably
or
put
PJ.
ourselves up. Yeah, maybe PJ, maybe Flack. Trying to remember who even brought us down back then. But, man, we turn up to Adelaide I'm like, okay, cool. And Paul and I are walking around town, and we see this building. I'm like, oh, that's a pretty cool building, you know. Let's go and have a look. Like, you know, look at the patterns in the floor. You know, we just sort of, this is how it was, you know, with Paul. Like, it was just random. We just see crazy shit and we just go and do it. And I walk in this building, and there's this, like, a couple of old couples there. I don't know if Paul spoke about this in his thing the other day, but they're like, oh, are you guys here for the tour? And so straight away we're like, yep, okay, we're here for the tour. And I'm looking at Paul. Paul's like, yeah, we're definitely here for the tour. I'm like, really, Paul? What is this place? You know? Anyway, he'd already caught on. I had no idea. So anyway, we get in this lift, and we're in this lift. This couple, I think it was about 6 people, 3 couples, and this guy doing the tour. Anyway, it's the headquarters of the Freemasons.
Oh yeah.
And I had no idea, right, what this was all about. Then so Paul's like, just chill, bro. Just let's go. You know, we're in the lift. Anyway, we go up, we get to the first floor, they're showing us around, you know, these are the tea rooms, you know, this is where we meet. Thinking, man, this is like the Lions Club, like, what the fuck? You know, Paul, what are we doing here? And he's like, no, just trust me. And so they're showing us around all these like boring ass rooms and stuff they do, and this is where the women stay, and blah, blah. Then we eventually get up like about 3 or 4 floors up in this building. And man, we walk into this giant courtroom. It's not a house of law or anything. We walk into this courtroom with this giant G hanging from the ceiling, massive star on the floor, big judge's bench. I'm like, what the fuck is this place, bro? Anyway, they start telling us about it. You know, this is here, we have all the hearings, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, yeah, man, you catching on yet? And anyway, we get into the next room, there's this giant organ. This guy starts playing the organ, everyone's like really enthralled. Paul's like, let's take off. So me and him just disappear out the door. We go for our own tour. We walk around this Freemason mansion. We end up in this hall, man, this giant hall with all these photos of like all the prime ministers, all the top judges, everyone's in there. And I'm like, what the fuck? And we end up in this library, and this old bloke turns up. He's like, hey, fellas, Freemason. Paul's like, yeah. And I'm thinking, fucking, what is this? Anyway, he's like, oh, so you went into the, you know, the rooms, you got to see it all. He's like, yeah, you go down to the pub downtown, you hear what's going on there. It all comes up through here, all the decisions get made. And, you know, then it all goes to Parliament. And Paul's like, see, I told you what's going on here. Anyway, this guy's like telling us everything. And then he has this full sentence moment. And he's like, man, I've been here for X amount of time, and I'm about to get my 50-year jewel. And he turns around to this cabinet where all the badges are. Like he's been looking at it every day for 50 years. And he goes to point at it, and he goes, I'm about to get this. And he freaks out, and he pauses. He's like, it's gone. And he has this whole panic attack that this badge he's been waiting for is just gone out of this cabinet. And then he's like scanning around. He's like, oh, no, there it is. Someone's just moved it. And he's had this sigh of relief. So I looked at Paul and thought, what the fuck is this about? Anyway, this huge Scottish security guard comes up, grabs this guy, and just turns him away from us and says, fellas, he'll talk to you for hours. Man, and they march this guy out of the place. He doesn't even turn around and look at us. And then they're like, fellas, I think it's time for you to go. And they march us out of the building. But, dude, we had this full-on, like, Freemason experience. It was just so cool.
I know the building. I know someone that works in there. It's us.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I know someone who works there as she's like a barmaid sort of thing. And she's specifically told, you know, bring that button down, prop your tits up, fucking sus. That's Adelaide to a T, mate. The little secret tunnels that go from underneath it to the Parliament. Ugh, creepy fuckers, man.
Mate, crazy. So then we did this show, and we played the show, and then we end up down in I think it must have been in Rundle Mall somewhere. I mean, man, it was like a ghost town. There's no one around. Anyway, Flack and all the boys are out, and anyway, we're down on the street. There must have been some sort of riders' beef or something, and then this full-blown brawl just breaks out in the middle of the mall. We're in the middle of it. This huge fight just like rolls into the front of Macca's. They're all just into it, and I'll never forget it. It was just crazy. And then all of a sudden, the police pull out of their, like the Simpsons again, pull out of their place, drive down about 2 or 3 doors, pull up. All these coppers jump out. This massive fat copper jumps out. and I don't know who it was, just yells out, "It's Chief Quimby," and then everyone just starts pissing their pants laughing, and this cop is just standing there. I'm thinking, man, where are we? This is just so cool.
Adelaide, mate. Fucking hell.
So yeah, that was one of the early awesome memories, you know, and that's kind of how it was, you know, like you'd turn up interstate and people were just so hospitable, welcoming. You know, we'd sleep at dudes' places most of the time.
Yeah.
You know, and all the writers had come out, I think, because of Paul's influence with Celsius and Deathwish Cast. The audience was always a lot of writers, you know, and so it was awesome for that, but every show ended in a riot.
Yeah.
Like there was
Always
just punch up
man.
after all the shows.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's kind of what I remember about the early days, you know, just you're seeing just these gnarly fights, man, at the end of every show.
Yeah.
And in the end, there was a lot of venues wouldn't have it, you know, because it was just too wild, you know.
Toilets
but
get
we
trashed.
toured a bit with punk bands. Yep.
Toilets get fucked up with graph and yeah, and a trail of destruction right through the city. Yeah, man, good times. But the fights, that's like, you know, these days you go to a gig these days and there's girls there. It's like, whoa, what's going on here? There's girls.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like putting, it's like now how the girls are on all the stop and go signs at the traffic zones, you know, like it just calms the traffic down. It's the same sort of deal, you know, the girls turn up at the gig, calms the audience down a bit, you know, and there was no girls at those early shows.
No, certainly wasn't. It wasn't a place to pick up.
You know, that was the thing. So music was wild. So by the end of the night, everyone's wanted to kill each other.
So do you reckon? So then you've stopped releasing after kicking it to hell and back. Oh, actually, I want to go back. Sinus, where is he at the moment? Because I was really expecting a lot from him. He's a fucking dope rapper, man.
Yeah, he because Sinus or Chris, he was always in bands. So growing up, he was always the front man for bands. He was just a naturally gifted dude. He could play any instrument. He could just pick them up and play them.
All right.
And so he spent a lot of his time sort of in the band circuit, sort of playing in different sort of punk bands like sort of Deftones sort of vibe, if you've heard of them.
Yeah.
He was in a band called Room 101. They were pretty big. We did a record with them, a Celsius featured on their EP. And so we'd play a lot of these kind of metal or rock kind of shows, and Celsius would turn up and get on stage, you know. And so he did a lot of that kind of in that sort of 90s, early 2000s. Then he kind of got into a bit more probably softer sort of rock music, formulated a band called Sans Chevelle. Again, kept touring in that kind of circuit. He'd turn up and do the Celsius shows, but he didn't really participate in the scene. You know, he didn't rap kind of outside of any of that. I think he put out one solo track on the Airheads record with Sandro. I think he did the production on that. Yeah. And that was kind of, you know, after sort of or around the time of doing the second Celsius record. So the second Celsius record was almost like a lock away. You know, we went in for a few weeks, Paul's place, and mate, we just lived there. You know, Sinus, myself, and Paul, and we just created that record. You know, it was just no holds barred. Yeah. We just wrote on the spot. You know, we just pushed the sound. I remember not too sure what it was. He had someone staying in the next room, and they were in there all day, sucking back bongs. And you know, I think we had the 808 tune on, and he just come running out and vomiting because of the bass, you know. And we were in an apartment block. I don't know how Paul didn't get kicked out, you know. Like we were, you know, to the downstairs in an apartment block, and mate, the sound that came out of that record, you know, and so
huge,
Sinus was a huge part of that. He was a huge part of that record. He was on a fair few of the songs. And then sort of after that, he kept going with the music. You know, he was quite creative, but he could never really stick to one thing. He just, you know, he was always on to the next thing. So he created we did a bit of stuff. So when I did my sevens, we formed a couple of really low key side bands. One called Macho Distorto, another one called Dirge, and you know, they were kind of like electronic soundscapey sort of stuff. And then he took the Marcho Distorto band to another level, and he created like a pretty amazing record himself. If it was produced properly, it could have been, you know, an amazing record. It was almost like The Weeknd before The Weeknd.
Wow.
You know, that band. And yeah, now, man, I kind of lost touch with him a couple of years back. I think he's over in Scotland. You know, he was chefing. He's into photography. You know, he's always been super creative. I don't think he's doing the music anymore. Yeah, so he's sort of more cooking and taking pictures, you know. So
he was good, man.
Yeah, I think he's living about in Scotland. Yeah, oh, mate, super talented.
Yeah. What is this line, right? You say the sun sets in the West End. Sutton Adelaide is dreamt for suffer stuttering in the door and draws you under the plastic. What the fuck is that? I could never fucking pick it up. Do you know the one I'm talking about?
Yeah, but I don't know if I talk about Adelaide.
You don't say Adelaide? You might not. You say it really quick. The sun sets in the West End and Sutton is dreamt for suffer stutters in the door and Sutton draws you under the plastic. I don't know, man. But for years, I'll be like, what is he saying?
Holler when he's born to draw and straw. It's sunset in the West End and that train ticket will get you less than the latest trend for stuff. A stutter and the doors will draw you under the plastic like a massive seizure wrapped around the signpost breather.
Oh, okay. I'll have to figure that one out. Holy shit.
Oh, that's all right. That's just
Mate,
a personal one.
Just
just get back to me.
I barely remember it.
Yeah, I listened to it about 50 times today. I'm like, nope, I don't know what he's saying. All good, man. You have a listen to it and get back to me.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the vinyl and seeing if there's any scribes on here because we've got some of the lyrics on here, but it's not on there.
It's from.
I kind of know it, but I don't know the whole lyric, so I'd have to listen to it.
That's all right. That was just a personal one for me. All right. So, what do you think about the Australian music scene now? Do you think it took a dive after that era, like the fall of Obese, and you know, Nuff Said sort of backing off, and you know, what are your thoughts on?
Oh man, it's a hard one, man. Like I kind of look at it like, I don't know, you know, like I kind of look at things sort of holistically, and you know, they're just patterns, you know, like they're just time shifts, you know. We all kind of were there for a time, and then, you know, we get married, we have kids, we move. The next group are coming up, they go through a process, they move, you know, and so you've got these kind of peaks and troughs. I mean, it was a tricky time, I guess, back then. There was no money. We were just getting to the point where, you know, we were breaking into radio and television, and there was few bands that kind of really, you know, sort of led that, jumped onto the business plan model and, you know, like the Hood and so forth, and really, you know, took the bull by the horn, so to speak. What do I think of the music scene now? I mean, I think it's great. You know, like there's a whole lot of stuff coming out, and it's super different. You know, am I overly stoked at the whole trap kind of approach? Man, you know, I get bored. You know, like I mean, it's hard. You know, everything's so accessible. Like, man, kids can just like make beats, record like in an instant on their laptop, on their phone. You know, so it, like, I find it you can't compare it, or you just end up in a weird place if you try and compare things. You know, so I kind of look at them for what they are, and you know, having young kids myself, trying to, you know, because I'm bad. You know, I play all the old shit. My girls, you know, can rap all the Goody Mob songs because that's all they get to listen to, you know, and it's sort of like, well, you know, I kind of got to allow their music in as well, you know, and I've got to give it time, and I've got to think about it and go, all right, well, I've got to put myself in a position when I was that age, and, you know, what I was doing was super different. And if I'm going to come back to trying to confine things again, then I'm just the person kind of didn't agree with back then.
Yeah.
So, man, look, where is it? I don't know. Like, it's a strange place. I just think for me, it's all too frequent and too fast and too next.
Yeah.
You know, like, I like the idea of sitting down and listening to a record start to finish.
Yeah.
Not just skipping through the first 30 seconds of a song. You know, so that's where I don't meet with music today. You know, like I kind of want the whole experience. I want the package. I want the record cover. CDs, you could pull the plastic out. Am I losing you?
Yeah.
And, you could pull the plastic out of the CD and you could, get something secret, in there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the sort of shit I want, you know?
Yeah. I'm still a big vinyl collector myself, and I was asked recently, who was it for? I don't know. Someone interviewed me for something, I can't remember. And it was like, why is vinyl important? Oh, yeah, I know what it's for. It's something on Facebook. And it's like, well, there's that whole recycling factor of we sample off vinyl, we put it back onto vinyl. Why is it pressing vinyl so important? And then also it's the engagement with the listener. So you got to get up. The record comes to an end. You got to get up. You got to turn that record over. You got to look after the record. You got to put the needle down properly. So there's an engagement with the the format, and nothing beats holding like a big, fucking big record cover. And what I miss is, like, I'm looking at this now. Look, Basic Equipment, and it's like, oh, okay, Sleek the Elite was on that. Oh wow, fucking, he was on Fat Pizza, and then you can go, oh, DJ ASK, he did that for fucking Death Wish Cast. Now you don't know who produced what, because you don't know, who played fucking who played bass on it, this, that, and the other. Because even if you do go into Spotify's production notes, no one puts them in there anyway.
Like, I don't even know how, but, as I said, we were kids, we used to skate for an hour. We used to catch a train for an hour and skate into the city. And then I used to go every day to the record store, and I would sit there and Sleeping Monk and Dr. Fibes used to look at us and think, who are these lunatics? But me and Sinus used to sit in that record store till it closed every day, waiting for that Raekwon Only Built for Cuban Link CD to turn up, right? And, man, I'd go there every day for 2 weeks, waiting for the mailman to turn up with the fucking CD from America. And you're just like, how do we even know that shit was coming? And then you'd kind of get the CD and then you'd read the fine print and you'd look at what's going on in there and you'd somehow cut, like, because there was no internet, you'd come up with who was the next one going to put their record out, right?
Yeah.
And then you'd go and do the same thing and sit there for another 2 weeks and wait for that fucking record. And I've still got the Raekwon poster because Amato was like, you guys are nuts. So you can have the promo poster that came in with the package. And I've still got that somewhere in the cupboard. But that was part of the process, and you actually had to work for it.
Delayed gratification, man.
And and I think that just gave it something else, whereas now, like, my girls, whatever, they listen to a song and they don't really care. Like, there's not a whole lot in them. Like, moves them for a bit, but then they're on to the next thing, and the other one they don't remember anymore. Whereas when you've spent that much time investing in that record,
100%.
and it's worth it, then that becomes etched in you. So that was pretty wild, man. But
that's a good point. Like, I could sing anything from Ice Cube, whole albums all the way through. I can sing Predator word for word, the whole album. All the Ghetto Boys shit I could sing word for word, because you spend your only money if you pay for it back in the day, but whatever you do to get it, and then that's what you've got. So I remember I bought Spice One's 187 I'm a Killer, or no 187 Murder She Wrote it was.
Yeah.
And that's all I had.
Yeah.
That's all I had for ages, man. So I'm supposed to be good at one. Like, I still listen to it. I still know it word for word, man. And I could tell you who, like Ant Banks, I could tell you who did what, and who played fucking horns on it. But that's gone. That is gone. That is a thing of the past, man. And it's a throwaway society, mate. Definitely.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man. Interesting, and I don't know, but at the same time, I kind of look back at my approach even to just making music and being exposed to so many different opportunities and things and like I kind of wonder sometimes, what avenue I was going down, because I mean, we did the second Celsius record and then I had a whole bunch of solo shit recorded because Paul was moving back to Death Wish Cast then, and so I was just sort of banging on and I recorded this tune in 2006 and I'm still trying to put it out, bro.
Really?
And I'll be honest, it's probably my favourite song I've ever done, and it needs to see the light of day. And I'm working on it with JP. He originally produced it. We've managed to get J-Zone on the drums.
Sick.
And it just sounds so fat, and it's sort of like a rock song. But here I am trying to put a record out that was originally recorded in 2006.
I love that though. It's good.
It's like, man, what the fuck?
I've been slowly getting through. I've been repressing all my fucking favorite tracks that I did. I just put out a 7 the other year, and they're 2 tracks that are both over 10 years old. And I'm like, you know what? I'm giving it the vinyl treatment. I can afford it. Fuck yes, I don't care if it sells. It's more of a legacy for my children.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So let's talk about the sevens.
No,
let's talk about the sevens you sent me, man, because that was a long time in the waiting. So that was way back when we were talking, and you're like, yeah. I'm like, I'll grab your sevens, and then you disappeared for the next 20 years. So now I've got them, and I played them, and they are abstract, man.
Taken by aliens.
So they're pretty abstract. So what's going on there? What is that?
Yeah, look, I think that's kind of where I got to do something that was just me. And mate, like I used to write a lot of poetry, so I'd pretty much just put a pen on a page and write a whole page without stopping, and I'd do that every day. And so I've got about 3 books of verse that ideally I would have loved to have published or put out at some point. But what I did was I took a bunch of those and put them to music. And so I'd sort of hooked up with Realistics at the time. He had some stuff he was throwing my way. I was going through it all. I was working with Curo because we were doing the Upshot stuff.
Yeah.
And so I got all this cash. I think it was 2002 or something like that.
What did you say? You got a redundancy
young
package?
And stupid, and I didn't really know care. And yeah, I just got a payout, and I was like, sweet, I got all this money. And man, then we just went in and I just had this idea. I wanted to do a record. And so we kind of created the first record, the black one. And so that's that photo on the front. So I did all the artwork. That's a picture of my dad. So, it's in my old house. I had this kind of scene where my dad died when I was 16 or something during my HSC. And, we were pretty close, even though that my parents were split. But, I had this connection probably through the music with him, and I had a vision one day where I just sat there and watched this thing, and so anyway, I recreated that in that artwork there of just my dad kind of standing there in the hallway like a ghost. And, it's kind of this sort of poetry-based sort of thing. And, it was a bit of an ode to him. So I always put my music out on vinyl to go into his record collection.
Nice.
Because he was a DJ, but he was a collector.
Nice. So
I've got a shitload of old vinyl. And so that was the idea, to just always
really nice,
put it on wax to go into his collection. And that's kind of where that was. And then the pink one was like 9 different verses, I think. So they were just all short verses. But I think I rushed that record. I don't think I spent enough time on it. But the idea was to get all the influences, all the different musical influences that kind of brought me to where I am. And I just mashed all that music together and just did the verses over the top. And so it's like, Jeff Buckley and Faith No More and all these other random loops from bands. It's a complete rip. But it was cool to do live because I got a live band together and then we played it all out live. So it was way better to do live than it was to listen to that 7-inch. But, it might have been a little bit self-indulgent, the whole thing. But it was for me, it was probably trying to find. That was when I was trying to find the sound outside of Celsius.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I had Upshot going, and I was playing with a live band. That was cool. There was like an 8-piece band. We could be really free to do different stuff. And then I had Celsius, which was this like aggressive, especially the second record, super aggressive, super hip hop. So I was trying to find a balance in there, but you know, Upshot just pushed me. You know, they were these amazing musicians, and I remember we did this one tune called "Breathe." I don't know if you've ever heard the Upshot stuff.
I never got the record. I'm familiar with it, but I never got it. Spewing.
Yeah, so because Sleeping Monk was the original MC.
Yeah.
And so they'd turn up to gigs and they'd invite MCs up, and then eventually Monk was sort of the main front man, and then you know, after a while Kuro and myself kind of joined the band and we became the front man, and then Kuro moved on and 13 Sun kind of joined just at the end there. And we did like a live at the Wireless, Triple J at some point.
Did you?
Back in the day, but yeah, we did this tune called "Breathe," and it was pretty cool. There was this weird timing, and no one could rap on it. It was like all off and bizarre. And I was like, "Yeah, fucking give it to me. I'll sort this out." And so I wrote this verse, and I made it. So we chopped it into 3. I did it in 3 sections, but it sounds like I don't take a breath.
Wow.
But the second verse is the first verse, word for word in reverse. So
is that out there?
I walk down. Yeah. I think it's on Spotify actually. I think I put it up there. But it's fast. We used to do it live. Fuck, it was so hard to do. And I remember practicing it for 3 weeks in my lounge room. I just took 3 weeks off work and just rapped all day, every day to get this song. And went in the studio and just nailed it, man. But what annoyed me was they flooded the vocals with all these effects to make it sound trippy, and it just shit me because it didn't need effects. It just needed to be just straight raps, you know. And yeah, it was pretty cool. And so like I really enjoyed sort of pushing the boundaries with that band, you know, vocally on what we can do.
So it's called "Breathe."
And then yeah, I'll find it and I'll send it to you, bro.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll find that and send it to you when I'm figuring out what I said in that other tune.
Breathing in and out of space, individual oxy tanks, incognite, interest, integrate the proxy vest, double demo, well brand, super pseudo 3,000 millions of pollen trains, comet out of stellar helicopter, rock, radar, butane, gamma, butane, belt, strain, starter, setting out, Shiner guide, ray and log, sonic planet, problematic, caution, vanish, patterns, radio, inactive addicts on a track, static, being poison, people steal, people faces to a real sickle, dealing to a devil, vanish, fuel, diesel, dying, hitting higher, fitting lock, try to fly with a plot, cut and dry, chrono, split and motor, sockets lost like a rye, in a needle stack on vine, ill as night, hoodie, high to sand, ship, frying out of range, reading plasma off the chart, tip, a stranger to the current, present, key and chain, rated, station, loading base, the code and layers, proven plates, and code on excavators, super light, high, synchrosonic, superstation, systematic, motivators, built complete to eat the phosphonic, triple papers, underneath the street, status, innovators, reap, caters, so to the beat, compatibility within a level class, quality class level A with incompatibility to feed a solid cater within a beta status free the underneath vapor triple fluxophonic the heat to complete built motivated systematic station super synchrosonic via light flow to excavator proton plate probing layer decoding base load and danger data under raid and chamber Rinky present cover the two stranger ever charts the plasma reading range out of price Chevelle sands the high hooting eye is nil fire nickel stack A and Y A socket eyes rubber bleeding chronostrine coupler A what flat a try lock and fit a high hit design diesel dual vanish double later dealing related faces people still people poison beam static track aeonatic inactive radio patterns vanish watch problematic planet sonic weapon rig I try to over intense start a strain belt butane gamma computer rating rock up the hella stellar out of comet transit all lead to milli thousand free pseudo super grand venom double best proxy integrate interesting of me tanks oxy individual space about in breathing
man, and then what happened? So 2005, I packed up. I got on an aeroplane and I disappeared. I went overseas, took my rhyme book, took my MySpace, and mate, I went to Japan for a bit and then hit Europe. I spent about 8 to 10 months in Europe, just sort of wandering, rapping, hooking up with all sorts of random people. Hooked up with these dudes in Scotland called, what they called Riz. He was, I should have written all this down. Some wild ass rap group from Glasgow. Man, I hung out with them. They eventually came and we toured in Australia. We did a gig with Atmosphere. That was pretty cool.
Really?
I went over to Norway and, hooked up with this girl there that was running a radio show, and we went and did some stuff with the Fugees and Exhibit in Norway. That was sick. Man, I was just sort of traveling, doing all this random shit, and then I ended up in London, went to the 13 and God show, which was Gel and Dose One with this German band, I think, called the No Twist. And sort of, hooked up with them there. And man, then I went over to New York and I spent about 2 months in New York. And I'd toured with Kool Keith in Australia before that.
Yeah.
And so I went to New York and I hooked up with Kool Keith and we hung out. And this is where I kind of, questioned sort of what I was doing, because I was a full-blown alcoholic.
Oh,
I was just drinking every day. And man, here I am, New York, winter, January, turn up to the Kool Keith gig, Slum Village. I'm pretty sure it was one of the last shows Jay Dilla ever played. And I'm standing there and Kool Keith's like, this is my parents. And this is Prodigy from Mobb Deep. and so I'm just kind of standing there like hanging out with Kool Keith's parents and Mobb Deep and Slum Village all at the same time. And, we're kind of there and, I get up Kool Keith, we do some stuff, and man, then I just disappear into the night, drunk every night. And that's what I was doing. I was hanging out with all these rappers and I had all this exposure and opportunity at my fingertips. And I was waking up on park benches in New York in the middle of winter the next day. And man, I was a train wreck, bro, and I kind of look at that time, and I think to myself, like that, it's amazing how some of these things, take control and kind of, put you down that dark path. So that was a real eye opener. I kind of probably pushed on for longer than I should have. That got to do a whole lot of cool stuff, but I couldn't retain anything, because before the end of the night, I'd disappear the wrong way. And so that was kind of the stint just after the second Celsius record. And I was kind of just lost in the world, wandering around and trying to do shit, but also going against myself at the same time. And then turned up back in Australia about a year and a half later. And, what did I do, man? My mum found this youth working job sort of in the paper, and she's like, here, just go get this gig. And man, it straightened me straight out. I went and took on this gig. I was working with young people in Western Sydney. I was building recording studios, I was doing music festivals, and I was spending most nights in a jail cell with young people. And it no longer became about me, and so, mate, I managed to kick all the demons pretty quick and find an avenue where I was working with young people for a good amount of time. And, we did some cool festivals, Deathwish Cast, and there's a bunch of other bands, but I had this huge graffiti wall, and I'd have artists from all over Australia come out and paint. And, it was, it was a breath of fresh air, really, man, to kind of, inject that kind of energy into these young kids, that had that passion, that drive,
Fucking hell, that's crazy.
I look back on.
That's a crazy story, man.
Yeah.
Like, I did not know any of that.
I look back on all that time, and that's the thing. And when you say you kind of just disappeared, man, I kind of did, like that was the thing. And so for that that period there, man, I wasn't talking to anyone. I wasn't in touch with anyone in that music scene, you know. And you know, I had a couple of good mates, and I never forget one of them. You know, he sort of I ended up coming back from that trip overseas, and I had to stop in Fiji on the way home and turn up at a mate's wedding. And he asked me to MC the wedding. So all my mates are there. They're all in Fiji. And I've just rocked in after a year and a half of hard drinking. And, mate, I was an absolute wreck, bro. And they just looked at me like, who the hell is this? You know, I was just bloated and, you know, hair everywhere, jeans ripped to pieces. And, no, I couldn't keep myself together, you know. And they kind of just looked at me like, oh, this sort of, yeah, a completely different being. So, yeah, it was when I reflect back on it now, you know, it's it was a very different time for me compared to kind of anything before that and then anything after that.
Fuck.
Yeah.
Are you sober now?
Oh, look, man, I'm not either way. I still drink but you know, drink on Saturdays and Sundays and maybe a couple on a Thursday if I'm lucky. But yeah, nothing special, bro. But yeah, it's just sort of knowing, you know, sort of that when you look back at it, you know, sort of what it does to you and what it steers you away from. Like, man, I remember I was sort of ended up in like warehouses in the back of Brooklyn. It was like Razell and Mike Patton from Faith No More, and just like, man, just didn't matter where you went, you were just exposed to the most amazing music and bands. And you can do so much with all that exposure, but you could also just disappear out the back door and stagger around the neighborhood and luckily not get killed. But yeah, you know,
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and that's the stuff. Like, you know, sort of growing up listening to Faith No More, you know, Mike Patton's probably one of my, you know, all-time favorite artists. And, you know, here we are with Celsius record. We've got DJ Schizo, you know, Italian world scratch master. And then I'm out here. There's a side band that Mike Patton has. They're called Mr. Bungle.
Oh, yeah.
They're kind of like a
I know Mr. Bungle.
Punk sort of syncopation sort of band. And anyway, I'm going to that gig one night, and DJ Schizo's here in Australia, and he's like, "Oh, my friends are playing." I'm like, "Oh, your friends? You know, who's your friends?" And he's like, "Oh, Mr. Bungle, I'm their European tour DJ." And I was like, "What?" So anyway, go down to this gig with Schizo. Anyway, next minute, Paul and I stand there backstage talking to Mike Patton from Faith No More. I'm just having this like complete moment, man. I'm not really a fan, but I was a huge fan that night. Yeah. And then the next night, Mike Patton and DJ Schizo doing this side show. They're playing at Newtown RSL. Schizo's spinning records. Mike Patton's doing all this weird vocal stuff. Next minute, he just drops a Celsius record, and there's Mike Patton just singing over the Celsius record. You know, and these are the moments, you know, that you kind of grow up as a kid, and you put these records out and do this stuff, and like you can align the stars with some of this stuff, you know, like it's pretty cool. Yeah, you know, and so when you say what are the moments, like they're those moments, you know, for me that meant a lot, you know.
Yeah, you never know where your music's going to go and who it's going to affect, you know. It's some of the best feedback I've had has been just randomly people say comments like that song made me realize that someone else was going through the same pain as me and saved my life. I'm like, fuck, job done. You know, I had grown men, you know, big boys, you know, come up and say, did you is that you who put that song out, a specific song? I'm like, yeah. And he goes, that stopped me from fucking killing myself because my missus left me, you know, and you had gone, you had rapped about doing that. And I'm like, fuck, do you want your money back? Like, you shouldn't have to pay for that. You know, like it was, you know, pretty cool things to know. You don't put it out intentionally to do that. Yeah. So it was therapy for myself because I was going through it. And I think I might have said it on here before, but that's why Eminem was so successful, because he just resonated with fucking millions and millions of people going through the same thing, you know, and then did it well.
Yeah. Same thing, bro. I remember listening to Eminem in high school. None of us even knew he was white, You know,
Yeah,
Like,
same here. Yeah, I did.
again, just these cassette tapes, and
Yeah.
we don't have a clue. But man, but this is the thing, you know, like someone's going to hear it and find something in it, and that's that therapy, and mate, and that's that's awesome. That's why we make music, to keep balanced, and I think that's the key for me to kind of get back to it. The idea was to move out of the city, move into the country, and just find a space and get back to making some records, and
So you still making music now?
yeah, mate. Yeah, look, I've got a record that's sitting with Paul. This is a shout out to Paul to hopefully mix that song on stage this year. I hassle him all the time, but so I'm working with a young dude named Abel Two. I think he's originally a Brizzy boy.
Wait, I was just speaking to him, man. Wait, I was just speaking to him like last week. He put me on to
a good dude.
Right. He put me on to this retreat in Peru, this ayahuasca retreat, man. And, he's a real mad cunt, man. He reached out to me, and we chatted for a good fucking half an hour, texting, like Instagram, which is the equivalent of hanging out these days. Yeah. But he's a real cool dude, man.
Yeah, he's a good dude. He kind of lives, probably not too far from me, and man, he reached out one day, and somehow we connected, and I was like, yeah, let's do this, and so he kind of flicked me a bunch of beats, and I picked one that he was like, oh, it's on my oldest one, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm probably like, the oldest dude, so like, let's do it. And man, we've been working on this track, and in a way, it needs to come out because it's going to run out of time. It was sort of we wrote it sort of right at the start of all the kind of rioting, and like I've done all the artwork. I got the whole idea for it. I'm going to put it out on one of those jelly records, those floppy kind of things you used to get in a kid's book.
Yeah.
So I found a place and trying to get it all pushed out. So we'll put it out as one song, and then we'll have a B-side, which will be a digi. So we've got the 2 songs done, and I'm just trying to get the first one mixed through Paul. And then once that's done, then we'll just send it to master and get it pressed, man. So yeah, hopefully we can get it out soon, because the whole idea was I was trying to release it with a face mask of sorts,
Sick.
And that's kind of going to be completely out the window if I don't hurry up. Yeah, whatever. But it's pretty cool. So that was exciting to just get into some new shit. And then I've got that other tune that I've been working on for 15 years, 16 years, and I'm doing with Lance. And then that is sounding like really good. So that'll probably be the next one we'll put out. And then, yeah, we got Paul and I have got a pretty top secret project that I've been sort of sitting on for 2 years that I can't get my shit together to do. Really needs some attention before too late. So I've set myself a deadline of releasing it for the 50th anniversary of hip hop next August.
Sick.
Because it's pretty significantly tied to that. And yeah, hopefully I've told my girls I plan to be in New York for that. So they need to start saving so they can come with me.
Wow.
And
that'll be fucking huge.
That's kind of the plan.
To be in New York for that.
Yeah, so I really need to get this record together for that. So because it's the problem is I'd love to talk about it, but I know how shit I am at getting stuff done.
Yeah,
so it's probably better not to at the moment.
Nah, just focus on that. Focus on that, man. All right, I've almost had you for 2 hours. I'll wind it up. I got a couple questions that are pretty token to the show. So I've had mixed reactions with one of them, and I'm probably going to start omitting it from the show because I heard an American rapper say it's an offensive question, but it is top 5 dead or alive rappers. Sarah,
pretty hard, isn't it?
Paul couldn't answer it, and that's why I called the episode "I Can't Answer These Questions" because that's what he said.
I mean, maybe not in any real top 5 order because
no order. No order.
My problem is I like rappers for different reasons, So I mean, but look, Razkaz is right up there for me.
Sick.
Yeah, he always has been. I probably listen to his shit daily. That On Earth as It Is record is just like untouchable. Andre from Outkast, not just because he likes to dress like me, but he's a tight rapper.
Yeah, fuck yeah, he is.
Man, I'm going to put Sarek in there.
Yeah.
Funnily enough,
Yeah.
I kind of, what's weird is I've always struggled with his flow, but he blows me away. Just the way he can articulate things and the way he puts perspective on things. So I'm actually going to put him in my 5.
Yep.
Because he was the dude I chased to get to ever being there. That's 3. Holy shit. Then I probably got to put Dose One in there.
Yeah.
He's out there. I just don't know if anyone can do what he can do. Oh, far out. Top 5. Who else? It's really hard, man. MC8, AC Alone.
That's that's an eclectic mix, man.
LP.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a bunch of them, like that's the sort of stuff that I kind of, gravitate to. Yeah, it's hard,
Nah, that's good.
But yeah, look, man, there's so many.
That's not bad. I'm big LP fan. Fucking love him, man. Love his love his production.
Yep.
Love that Company Flow shit. That's one of my go-to records.
Nice.
Is that Little Johnny from the Hospital, that instrumental album he did with Mr. Len. Fuck, I love that joint, man.
Yep.
Fuck, that's good.
Yeah, I'd probably put him down as a producer for sure.
Yeah.
Producers, it's hard, really. I like Madlib. The whole Quasimodo thing for me is huge. Who else? These are tricky questions.
Yeah, it's a hard one.
There's just too many.
Nah, all good. All good.
I enjoy what Mr. Dibs does, chopping up his Instagram. I enjoy that.
Oh, yeah. He's actually...
so,
did you say Mr. Dibs?
There's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been talking to him. He's going to come on.
Sick. Yeah, okay. Yeah, he's cool, man. I've spoke to him a few times. That'd be really cool to have him on. I'm thinking about reaching out to him for a remix on this project that Paul and I are working on.
Yeah.
Just for something different.
Yeah, he's a good bloke, man. Cool. He's a good bloke. All right, so last one then. I won't ask you. I'm going to ask you if you could choose anyone to work with. Who would it be? But don't worry about that. All right. So this one here. This is.
That's easy. That's Mike Patton.
Oh yeah. Well, I should have figured that out. you had your fucking chance, but you're out drinking.
Yeah, that's the problem, man.
Oh shit.
But yeah, that's probably if I could work with someone, that's who it would be.
Yeah, that wouldn't be just featuring. That'd be like you'd want to fully make the most out of that. Sit down and have a full studio session. Hey, like talk all the way through.
Yeah,
like,
look, man, I'm not.
It.
Yeah, I'm not really down with the feature thing. Because I did that tune with Cool Keith, and it never really came out, and it got kind of half released. But that was cool because we actually we sat in a studio, we chose the beat, we wrote together, we recorded the whole song there, and it was an experience. It wasn't really about paying someone to come in and just drop a 16 bar at the back end of my song, and I've never really been fussed for the feature. I just think if the synergy's there, let's do it. If it's not, then let's not worry. And that's partly probably why we never really fussed about putting any of these other records out that we did with AC Alone or Anticon, because they were never really finished.
Yeah. Yeah, people do those throwaway verses, and you can tell that that's what they are. Going back to Raz, we did it while he was in Australia. We did a track with him, and it was really cool because we came to him with a theme.
Yep.
We said this is what it's going to be, this is what the song's going to be about. We had the idea, and he liked that. He's like, oh, that's good, man, that's good. He goes, give me some time, give me the beat, give me some time, and then we came back and recorded it with him. Well, Simo recorded it, and it worked. So instead of just being like, instead of that braggadocious shit, instead of just bragging, he's like, this is who you are. This is who you'll, like a small movie, this is who you're going to be in this role. And he was fucking all over it, like he nailed it. And yeah, I rap as a cop on it. That's how much we took it there.
Yeah.
I'm a detective on the song. So yeah, we took it there, baby.
Cool.
But all right, last one, mate. Last one.
That's what it's about.
Yeah, man, I love those themes and being creative. So last one is, if you could, I reckon I know the answer here, but I want to hear it from you. If you could write yourself a piece of advice on a small piece of paper and put it into a fortune cookie and send it back to yourself in time, what would that advice be and why?
No, I'm not going to say more aprons.
It's not what I was thinking.
Or more Teflon. It's funny, man. After I listened to one of your podcasts, I thought, shit, I got to go away and like think about what I'm going to say here, and I actually haven't. It's quite funny. What would I say to my younger self? Oh man, to be honest, it's probably be more open with your emotions and tell people you love them more.
Yeah.
Like, it's probably what I would tell myself as an old man. I'm not good at it now either, and it's probably because I never was then. But yeah, look, I think that's sort of, as you get older and you kind of reflect back on time spent and, people lost, that's kind of, the important thing. I think as a young person, I kind of, really did chase what I wanted and fought for those things. So, I'm proud of what we did as young, 17 to 23-year-olds, and the work we put in at the time. It's how I do that now when I'm, in my mid-40s. Really. Yeah, so I think, the real stuff is about, being more in touch with your emotions and not being shy to tell people stuff, really.
Yeah, it's good advice. Good advice. Very interesting. I don't know how I'm going to turn that into a title. I like more Teflon.
Yeah, maybe more Teflon. You could use that, man. That's cool.
Oh, shit. All right, mate. We'll leave it there. But what we'll do, I'll stop recording, and I'm gonna have a quick chat with you off air because I want to ask you something real briefly.
Yeah, because we missed about 10 years in there. So.
Oh, fucking hell. We did, eh? Yeah, I had a question like, what did you do in between this and that? But it was a good conversation, man. It's good. Fly well. That's 2 hours gone, and I'm like, fuck, we better. I put out a thing the other day saying, should I split the episodes?
Yeah. Oh man, there's a whole other episode.
Yeah, well, I just put a post out the other day saying, should I split the episodes into 2 hours, into two when they're this long? And everyone was like the consensus was like, yes. but people want things dulled down into 30-second snippets, man. I'm like, fuck that. I like these big ones because when I listen to a podcast, that's what I want to hear. I don't want to wait for next week, like especially if it's one guest. I'm like, fucking give it to me.
Yep.
Give it to me. All right, mate. We'll leave it there. Don't go anywhere. Ladies and gentlemen, that was just brass these days. No longer brass knuckles. Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask you. What's with the name Brass Knuckles? Where did that come from?
Oh, okay. So with the name, when I was young, I said I used to do martial arts. I used to wear a lot of rings. So I had rings on most fingers, and it sounded tough. I was 17 or something, 16. I was like, yeah, all right, brass knuckles, that'll do. Yeah. And then, John the Mad Arab, a few other dudes call me Bumpy Nuts, whatever else. And then, man, I got older and I was just like, fuck, it doesn't work. But everyone used to call me Brass.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to stick with Brass. So I created this new symbol, which you can probably see on the screen there.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the Alchemist metal symbol for the metal brass.
Yeah.
So I got one
nice.
made and out of brass. And I just figure I'd just stick with that.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, you know, the metal brass is really interesting because it's the balance between male and female and a whole lot of, you know, things around light and stuff. So yeah, there's a whole lot of meaning behind the metal itself, and you know, it's a lot about balance, which I think is really cool, and yeah, it kind of explains the apron.
Again, back to the aprons. All right, mate, let's wind it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Brass, formerly known Brass Knuckles, but now is just Brass. Thanks heaps for coming on, mate, and really, really appreciate you. We finally got there in the end. It took us a while, but we got there. We've been talking about it for a while,
awesome.
So yeah, awesome, mate. Thanks, mate, and peace out.
Thanks, brother. Peace.
Yeah. Celsius with a whole new heat. Word up to Death Wish Cast. Oblique 149, the whole of Adelaide. STR, San Chevelle. Sydney Hate Crew. One leg. Alright. We're about to drop a ton of bricks on these fools. Show them, Sarek. I'm now wearing my Kevlar on my back. Why is that? For that's how old friends seem to be approaching me. Yeah. See, with these old mates, I travelled lands and dug up treasure. But now the census, the ship is under mutiny. X marks the X, and now sparks fly as the hammer drives the final nail, permanently shutting out your endeavour to cook me and captain me into the pot of betrayal. I'd rather it be like Grail between us from this ridiculous day onwards. Back to the show, it's true, people. Build a new hope, a tree condo with Robinson Crusoe on Endo with 100 times scope. Put a seventh hole, attack is the envelope. And hey, Sarek aka unique will always be dope, like the graceful leap of an antelope. High octane to the kid who smashes 3D lettering with simplicity of plane. Hold the integrity not to turn. Burn with formation, burn with determination, burn with frustration and thrust. The hate and boom gate what ceases you to illuminate. I think you know what that is. Yeah, silver surf the divine and shine more than a Cunham 5 still with a full cap of fluid in the spine over a DX 100 baseline. Or even an English slut with a muff gut that you have to fuck on your first date with a putt-putt. Fuck the north, fuck the south, and fuck the east, and fuck the west. It's about the crest that rests on your armory status, legendary like Paul C. Rejuvenate your stock, see taken. I'm the waterman with my number ones. I'm a raw pum-pum-pums. Stop boring me like weddings, as the best time is the butter and buns. Cunts. Oh shit me. Slam it!
Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt. Shut the fuck up! Shut the fuck up! Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt. Shut the fuck up! Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt.
I can't believe you've got this hit missing like a foul engine clocking. Chicken feather dip looking like rapper proof with tar and scars. I share whether it rains or not. Hot like Drop Fest best. And crops in farmers lost degradation, patience. Caught stretch knots and noose flew for falling short. Too close to you, you're balling sort of. Hot sauce and hoops. They shoot to hoot and extend my condescence right there through this war-torn manable pen and principle. Sent to the end to tell the invincible that they'll be broke these cats by time of choking, you dig. Hence we sit on the fence for too long and laid a few liner note trends to quote the pressure pot. Boiling hot point to make it. Not just take it, hate to fake it with blocks and fake rock just to make it off this moon rock session. Lest we forgetting the ratings these days around to getting laid while you're waking. Do move on making impressions. It's all tall lessons to be served. And I'm learning stories second, you heard. You heard.
Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt. Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt. Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt. Bitch, you let me stick my hands up your skirt.
for the second time. I can't conceive you've got this shit licked like a hit and miss. That shit is outdated. For real is pulling in mackerel off the back of an ocean liner. Factual, all but hated. The siren graded tells the tale of tall man poppy syndrome. Prone to hit home with non-event program style suited main imprint across your hot shit window. Spilling nothing especially intel. Well developed dragon mouth. Like that first time you saw me draw the house with a takeout pencil. Mark for making face. We show you how to have a good time, baby. We turn you out and drive your whole world crazy. I'm rapping through straight off the shelf, fresh daily. A tasty basis, come on girl and lay your pastry.
I know you wanna rip my kicks off, but you can't. I know you wanna rip my kicks off, but you can't. I know you wanna rip my kicks off, but you can't get them.
But you can if you feel to them.